Welcome, Cynthia Donovan, to the Dish with Dina podcast. It is a pleasure to have you on with me today.
I am so excited to be here, Dina. Recording podcasts, whether it's with someone or by myself or on my podcast, is really one of my most favorite things to do.
It is, right? It really brings that big wide world into a bit smaller microcosm. And you are one of the many registered dietitians that I've had on this podcast, but we've never met each other before, as I don't think, right? We've never crossed paths anywhere.
No,
And
no, but
so
we're close.
we are. We're close on the East Coast. We're close in the same state. And I would love to have you share with our audience just a little bit of an origin story. Tell us a little bit about what even brought you into the field of dietetics, because as I've shared with a lot of other people in these episodes, sometimes people don't know what a dietitian is or does. And obviously, we'll go into your specialty practice and more details as our conversation progresses. But let's go where it all started for you.
Yes. So I honestly, before when I was in college, I knew science was always a thing for me. Eating healthy was always a thing. Working out, taking care of my body was always a thing. I initially went to college. I was a pre-med major and I was going to go to be a physician's assistant. And then when I got to calculus, I was like, oh, heck no. So my advisor was like, well, here's some other ideas, that are science-based. And they said, "Oh, what about nutrition? A dietitian, nutritionist?" I'm like, oh, "That's like a thing." As soon as he said that, I was like, "Oh my gosh, that's totally me." So I went to the trajectory of being a dietitian. I was supposed to go to school down in Long Island, and then that didn't work out, which was great because I would have been bombarded with lots of student loans. So I ended up doing my undergrad at SUNY Oneonta, and I did my master's degree. And yeah, so that's how I became a dietitian. But what I do now is completely different than what I thought I was going to be doing. And I am really grateful for my path that has led me here. And if you want, Dina, I could just share like a snippet of how I got to this particular place.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I think you and I were talking when it comes to in school of any case, right? Like there's only so much you can learn in textbooks and not necessarily knowing the nuances and the specialties and the different patient populations in the health sciences world. What did get you to where you are now? Tell us a little bit about your specialty of interest.
So, what I can tell you is that what I learned in college is, I learned the biochemistry and all the like the backbones of it, which I think we need as dietitians. But what I do now is not what I learned in college. So I'm maybe we'll weave into that. But after I graduated college, I went to right into clinical work. I worked as a clinical dietitian through all the realms of the clinical world, which I'm very grateful for because working in the hospital, like clinical arena, has not only opened my eyes to a lot of things, but it's also helped me be a better advocate for myself, for my family, when it comes to like, what goes on behind closed doors. Yeah, you see it. So then you can point it out for your family members, for you. So I am utterly grateful for my opportunity there. So then after that, I went on to do some contract work in the USDA, like a nutrition grant. So I worked in the community nutrition for a bit, and all while when I was doing the clinical, and then I quit my job, quit that job to do community because I had enough of clinical. I feel like there's only so much, well, at least for me, that I could take. So I was also an adjunct professor at a community college. I also was starting to do a gluten-free granola business. And I was also doing some side consulting in like the weight loss kind of arena. So I was doing like three jobs at once because the initial job just was not filling my cup. I was not fulfilled by that. It wasn't like, this is what I'm meant to do with my degree. So I dipped my toes into everything. And then I did community nutrition. I had two babies, two little boys who are now 6 and 8. And I think it was around the time my second was born, I was like, I cannot do this like working full-time thing with two kids. This is impossible. So then I quit my job to be a quote unquote stay-at-home mom. And I'm like, nope, that's not for me either. Not for me. So I worked with my then husband. We grew a pre-prepared meal business. And so then that also was not for me. And all while what happened was, I'm going to back up for a second. I had lost my menstrual cycle along the way, probably around the time I got married, which was in 2011. And I was just trying to be the healthiest version of myself, getting ready for my wedding, but I was on birth control. So I didn't know I had any menstrual irregularities, which, just side note, the pill masks all. So any kind of menstrual irregularities going on, you're probably not going to know on the pill. And so I came off the pill around the time I got married and I had no period. I'm like, okay, well, that's not normal. And doctors are like, oh yeah, you're fine. You just came off the pill, no big deal. And I'm like, no, no, this is not normal. So time went on, about almost 5 years, Dina, of me trying to figure out, by a misdiagnosis with PCOS, because it's super common with what I had, hypothalamic amenorrhea, and we'll go into more on that. It's very common to have the PCOS diagnosis. So when I had my two babies, my first baby was conceived via IUI because I couldn't get pregnant. I had no period. I had zero fertility. And then my second baby actually was conceived naturally because I did all the efforts I needed to do to take care of my body to have a regular menstrual cycle. So around that time, I had my second baby. My sister-in-law was like, why don't you specialize in what happened to you? And I'm like, there's not enough people. I'm like, no, like, because I was just thinking like very, micro level of seeing women around my area. I wasn't really open to the fact that you have, with social media now, you have access to the entire world. So I wasn't thinking, and I'm like, really? She's like, yeah, absolutely. She is also an entrepreneur and she was doing some virtual work before. So she's like, yeah. And I'm like, okay. And so that kind of just fell into place. And in 2020, I officially was like, I'm going full time with this. I hired a business coach, and just to kind of get me, I'm very structured. I'm a hard worker, but I need clarity. I need direction. Could I have figured it out myself? Yes, but I am always a fan of, let's work smarter, not harder. If someone else has figured it out for you already, why not? Right? And it's going to be an investment that, yeah, maybe you don't want to spend the money, but that investment, whether it's with a business coach or maybe someone's going to hear this podcast and say, oh my gosh, my period's missing and I could really use Cynthia's help. That investment of someone who has already figured it out, tested it out on multiple people to know that it works, it's really a no-brainer. So anything now, Dina, that I have a problem with, let's see, in 2023, 22, I was divorced, and I was like, well, I need to know how to do this co-parent thing. And I'm like, I've never done this before. So I hired a coach for that, so anything I feel like I don't want to say I can't do it myself, but that I know someone else has higher expertise in, that's going to get me there quicker, more efficiently and effectively, that's a no-brainer. The investment, is priceless, really. So yeah, so that's kind of how it kind of came together through my own struggles. And now let's see, it's been almost 5 years. I opened in 2020, officially, and I haven't looked back since. And I've now supported women across the world, hundreds of them, getting whether their periods back or conceiving. I just had a past client of mine reach out to me, and she's like, I just matched in the anesthesiology. She's was a med student. She's going to be an anesthesiologist. She's like, I could not have done this without you, without your support. Not the anesthesiologist, medical student part, but having the energy, the perseverance, the grace to get through that, because now she was fueled. Now she had a regular cycle. So just to share a snippet, I was actually emailing with her this morning. So yeah.
The things that I'm hearing, first of all, I'm writing down so many different bullet points for myself because this speaks to entering into a field or a profession where people sometimes just get an idea of oh, it's just working in a hospital, or oh, it's just cooking food for people or making a salad or doing nutrient analyses. And I've mentioned on my end too, I still have a very unconventional approach to work. It is not for the faint of heart. As we're talking right now at the time of this recording, we're entering into, tax season, and I'm very anxious about all of the streams of income. But what you were saying, Cynthia, about juggling all these things, my joke is, are we entrepreneurs or are we just working 7 part-time jobs? What is all this stuff that we're cobbling together? So I love that you tried a little bit of everything. I mean, even with the food service or the food product things that you were working on as well. This really just speaks to the wide variety, the depth and the breadth of different areas of interest, that just because somebody comes out with a registered dietitian credential, or maybe somebody has gone through the degrees, but maybe didn't decide that going to get the registered dietitian credential was for them. There are so many opportunities. And I really keep thinking, not to be corny, but like if you build it, they will come. Like you said, you
Yeah.
were told to focus on something and you thought to yourself, well, that's no, what does that make sense? But people will find you. There really are things that I think speak to our strengths. And the issue there, though, Cynthia, agree with me possibly, of you have to take action, right? You have to make sure that you're in it and on it. Like you're working on a business, but you're also working on your messaging. So let's talk a little bit about this too, because this brings me to my note about investing in someone to help. In your case, you were investing in a business coach. In other people's cases, they'll be investing in your services and your program to help going through. Let's talk about credentialing. Let's talk about the, as lovely as social media can be, sometimes there's misinformation, disinformation out there. Would you like to speak to that a little bit more in depth about how do people find quality, legitimate healthcare providers or coaches that they can work with? Is there research that you have to do on your own, like looking up people's credentials or cross-checking things or getting feedback and testimonials before you can really feel confident with moving forward with somebody, whether it's a business coach or working with somebody like you?
That's a great, great question. So I think for me, I think about when I wanted to hire a coach. I want to make sure they're not like just basing it off their experience, right? There's a lot of, and I think of this as in my field now, there's more and more of these HA coaches or period recovery hormone coaches or whatever. So I would want to know that they have credentials or they went to college to be a dietitian or to be something, because we have to keep up with continuing education. So it's not just like I go to college, I'm done. I have to have, what is it, 75 credit CUs or something like that. I want to know that. So in my perspective, if I'm hiring a coach for something, like I want to know that they have not only maybe the college or university background, but also the experience, the time in the field. I also want to see some stats. So I want to see like how many women have you helped? What's your success rate? So those are some of the things, because there is a lot of, you see this on social media now and it's like, oh, I could do that. And really, I mean, you can do that. And maybe some of those people that are just basing it off their experience is, it's for some people, but I've heard a lot of horror stories, at least in my field of work, of saying like, oh my gosh, someone told me to do this or someone told me to do that and it didn't work. And now that made my, disordered eating worse, So that's a little bit of tidbit, but also the relatability, relating with me to say like, oh my gosh, Cynthia went through this and she was an athlete and she, struggled with timings of meals. So example being, when I was a clinical dietitian, I would only eat based on what time it was, not based on my hunger. Oh my gosh, that's me. So that relatability has a very strong connection point to build that trust within that practitioner, all while having the other stuff that I talked about. Because you might see someone that has 160K followers and be like, oh my gosh, I relate to her. But she is, she's doing it maybe for, I don't want to say she's doing it for the wrong reasons, but maybe she doesn't have that experience and background and so forth. So there is a lot of messaging out there that if you're really feeling desperate about something, that you can get sucked right up. So, and sometimes there's messaging up there that you might see my page and be like, oh my gosh, that's me. And I might suck you right up. But also when you feel that way, still do your due diligence of asking the right questions of like, success rate, what's your background, what's your approach, because that may not be their approach for you. And I always like to say, if you hire the wrong coach, if you don't win, you learn. You're going to learn. I actually hired a coach it was last year and it just wasn't the right fit, but I learned a lot from it. So many things. So there's also that. So it's not like you make this decision with the wrong person. It's like you're done, end all be all. You're going to learn maybe what you don't need or don't want.
As I'm writing my little notes down here, some of my keywords that are coming up are things like authenticity and relatability. That is kind of
Yes.
the hook that allows an audience or a community member or a client, prospective patient to feel aligned. And that's really important too, because this also brings back the conversation that you had too about advocating and like patient-centered care, lived experiences. If you are, so unfortunately in the country we live in, there are certain criteria that maybe puts people in touch with other healthcare providers, and people might not be able to get access to affordable quality, current proper
Yeah.
healthcare. And so they might not be able to have the luxury of picking and choosing people, but I think you
Mm.
can still make do with saying this is not a good fit for me. This person's not listening to me, or every time I go there, I feel very uncomfortable. I feel very rushed
Yes.
and those sort of things. And so as I was writing down notes, one of you mentioned, you hit it right on the head. I call it the if it worked for me, it'll work for you mission statement, where that's not always the
Yeah.
case. And I love what you mentioned too there, Cynthia. Like, I think, testimonials go a long way, getting feedback, seeing some sort of proper amount of statistics, or how, like, the running thread of where people are potentially using their expertise. You've done a lot of interviews, you've been able to establish yourself as an expert in the field, and you also have the credentials to back that up as well. So I feel safe with somebody like you. I might not feel safe with some random person on the YouTube channel that's like, I suffered from
Yes.
this and I drank this potion or ate these foods and it cured me. Like, you really want to be careful as a conscientious consumer, especially as I make notes, especially with hormone health, blood glucose or
Mm.
blood sugar issues, and disordered eating patterns. Like, you don't want to do something that's going to restrict or end up making your situation worse, or end up putting you at risk for something else down the line as well. So I
Mm.
really appreciate all of that clarification around that.
Yeah, and Dina, two or three things I actually thought of while you were talking was
Yeah.
one is that getting to the root cause, right? Is this just, is someone out there just saying eat more, rest more, it'll bring your period back, or are we digging deeper of like, yeah, we know it's a food and an exercise issue, but like no, like deeper than that. Like why do you have the food and exercise thing going on? So that's one thing. Number two, that safety you just said feels safe. So that kind of goes into me a little bit of intuition as well. Like, does this feel right? Does this feel right? What you're hearing from this person, like deep down inside in your bones, does it feel right for you? Does it feel safe? So we need that safety piece in order to be able to do the hard work and whatever that it is we're trying to, hire this dietitian for.
And I think what you were saying before too about the kind of the desperation, like if people do feel like they're singled out, I've never heard of anybody else with my condition, I'm having trouble finding resources online, who do I go to? I think things like this are fantastic because we don't have textbooks that really drill down into some of the specialty areas when we are
Mm.
learning in our health sciences credentialing practices or through our curriculum. And so we really want to make sure we're getting the messaging out there. And the more we can speak and put people in touch with each other, the better. And I
Yeah.
also wanted to ask you now, too. You mentioned before about, and we've had some conversations on this podcast with PCOS, polycystic ovary syndrome. So,
Yeah.
how is the misdiagnosis, or how does it mirror? Can you share a little bit about, I guess what I'm asking is the
Yes.
differences between HA and PCOS?
Yes. And I just want to say, Dina, before I get into the PCOS thing, I want to say my medical nutrition therapy book
Yeah.
had me in a tizzy when I found out I had HA. I'm like, no, but my MNT book said that this is only for women with eating disorders, BMI of less than whatever, and an athlete. I'm like, I fit none of those. So no, I can't. So just to, again, your textbook is only showing you a snippet of that. So I just want to say that. And okay, so the PCOS HA thing. So first I want to start talking about the research of that. So first of all, HA is a condition that is underreported and understudied and probably so much more common than we even know at this like particular given point in time. So since 2015, the Endocrine Society guidelines on this condition is calling for more research. Right now, there has only been 139 original publications for HA, okay, compared to, get ready for this number, 8,000 on PCOS. That fact right there underscores the need for more research. And that fact right there also shows because there's more research out there, it is in probably medical teachings more, it's more accessible to doctors. And so there's that. Okay, but also With PCOS, the criteria, you have to meet three or two out of the three criteria, which is one, absent or irregular cycle, periods, polycystic ovaries, and then what is the last one? I think it's elevated androgen levels, or maybe those types of labs. When women with HA go and get the whole workup, they will go, they don't have a period, right? Okay, so there's one hit. Then they go to do the ultrasound and they're like, oh my gosh, like there's all these little cysts all over your ovaries. Bam, PCOS right there. But here's the thing with all these little cysts around your ovaries is that those are follicles, which doctors call cysts. I don't know why, but those are follicles that cannot develop until and to the proper follicle sizes or to the point where you have ovulation. So the woman's menstrual cycle is you have your period, you have your follicular phase, you have your ovulation phase, you have your luteal phase. So in essence, because there's no hormones, there's no LH, there's FSH is like non-existent, estrogen might be non-existent, it cannot progress to the next stage of your menstrual cycle. So those little cysts just hang out in your ovaries, follicles. And doctors look at it, they're like, oh, PCOS. Like, look at all the, cysts. And then you got no period. And then I would say, so this happened to me too. So they said, oh, look at all the cysts in your ovaries. And then also I didn't have a period, PCOS. My androgen levels were never elevated. That's a big sign. Usually, again, I'm not a PCOS expert, and maybe PCOS dietitians would tell you otherwise. But what I have found over the years is that unless you have elevated androgen levels, chances are slim that there's a PCOS thing going on there. So yeah, that's the big kicker. So if you were diagnosed by ultrasound, and to me, if you don't have all three, and here's another point too, Dina, is that women with HA have no periods. Like that period's been gone for like at least 6 months. Women typically with PCOS do have some periods, or at least some what's called cervical mucus or discharge. Some women will call it. Women with HA typically have minimal CM, cervical mucus, and so yeah, so that's a big one in all different points.
I think this also speaks to the value of an interdisciplinary team. And I have said this time and time again, with all due respect to general practitioners, they can't always call it. And sometimes, like you said, they're ruling out certain things and checking the criteria, but they're not really hitting the nail on the head, or they're coming close, but they're missing the actual diagnosis. And so for people who are out there listening, whenever we have these conversations on this podcast, we're talking to potential patients or people who are dealing with certain complications, conditions, things that are just they're not sure about. And we're also talking to practitioners. So reach out to your endocrinologist, reach out to your dietitians, like make sure you have a good team of people. And yes, I understand you might not be able to work it in your schedule or work it in your budget, but at the very least, there are resources out there that can confirm or provide you with other questions to guide you. A lot of people like you and I,
Yes.
Cynthia, we have like downloadable free things. Here's a checklist for
Mm.
something, like what to know when you're ... And so, for anyone listening who's confused about stuff, or you're struggling, or you feel like you're not being heard, do a little dig and see, again, come across people who might have some relevant credentials that are legit, and see what things they have. Everybody probably has an Instagram page where you can,
Mm.
check out some things that you can cross-reference or send a message. And of course, with this disclaimer, we might not be your healthcare professionals, but we can maybe point you in the right direction if you need any clarification. Cynthia, now that you've explained all that to us, how many years is this now? 15 years that you've been working specifically on this specialty?
So as a dietitian, gosh, 2011. So yeah, I think close to 15 years now.
Yeah.
Yeah, just about, just about. So that as a dietitian, but my specialty in HA, I would say, oh gosh, I mean, I started learning about it when I was going
Right.
through it. So it depends how you want to count it. If that's the case, it's been like, yeah, good 10 years.
Yeah, collecting
But
info.
yeah. So good 10 plus years. And then actually working directly with clients. I would say it started a little bit before I actually opened my business, filed for my LLC.
Mhm.
So I'd say at least 6 to 7 years.
So a
Yeah.
good amount of time. Do you see certain patterns or things that not to give anybody obviously any guidance on an undiagnosed situation or not being able to meet with anybody face to face here, that disclaimer. But do you see any patterns of people coming to you with certain issues that they have been told, like you mentioned, sometimes there's a misdiagnosis, or things that you feel are like your top three checklist points of what might be a good fit to work with you, or things that you might need to develop more information on, or any hot topics that come to you where you're like, nope, that was wrong, and finding yourself having to clarify on your own, being that you do have so many years under your belt now at this point?
Oh my gosh, so many, Dina, but I'll kind of keep it to like the top ones. And I also want to say I do have a free downloadable little thingy, and it is called my HA fact sheet. And I would say women that are listening to this that are kind of like on the fence, like, do I have this? Do I not? My doctor says no, is to read this 2-page thing I created that I wish I had to be able to advocate for myself better and build that confidence in myself. Because we look at, and I'm not saying everybody, we look at our doctors. I don't know if it's a generational thing or what kind of thing it is, but we look at them like they know all the answers. They know all the answers, and they don't. They're humans just like you and I. Like, they don't know everything about everything. Like, just as Dina and I as dietitians, we don't know everything about nutrition. So just having that. And so the top things here that I see with many women is that I went to the doctors. My labs were normal. My doctor said I'm fine. Girlfriend, if your period's missing, you're not fine. I don't care how normal your labs are. And I'm not going to talk about the normalcy of the labs. You guys could visit my Instagram page. I have lots of info there. So that's one. And then another big one is, well, I'm weight restored. I've gained weight, or I've recovered from my eating disorder. My period should be back now. So with that, again, is a big, in a perfect world, yeah, we would love your period. Like, you've gained the weight, like, yeah, we would love your period to be back by now. But weight is a very small piece of the missing period puzzle. And that, whether you're recovered or not from your eating disorder or disordered eating, if your period's still missing, your body still hasn't gotten the right amounts, maybe kinds of foods, or the proper time with that amount of food and rest and so forth. So the lab thing is a big thing. Many women will go to see functional meds or like naturopaths, and they'll put them on 1,000 different supplements. And, if your period is missing like completely, this is an energy availability thing. This is an energy deficit. Your body doesn't have enough food for the energy output. So, and then, I would say those are the biggies. Trying to think, thyroid, a thyroid is, well, it's my thyroid that's causing this. No, it's all connected. The thyroid, the missing period, it's all related to your hypothalamus. So getting enough food, enough of the right foods and enough of the right rest is what's going to help, your thyroid and help bring your period back. So those are the biggies that I see. And most women, Dina, come to me when they're at a point of, well, Cynthia, I've eaten more, I've rested more, and where is my period? So, and that's where I like to say, we got to find the missing pieces of the missing period puzzle. And everybody is different. And not only that, is most women that come to me, they've kind of DIY'd the period recovery, because it's like, oh, all I need to do is eat more and rest more. And yeah, but how, again, root cause. Like, yes, the exercise, yes, the food, but like, why? How did we get there with the food and the exercise? Because if we don't look at that simultaneously with refueling and resting our body, chances are we might have our period go missing again. Chances are we might not have a regular ovulatory cycle. Chances are we might have a short luteal phase and not be able to conceive or hold baby. So, and then also I think I get more, I don't want to say I get more joy out of babies and periods when I see my clients succeed, but it's the ability for them to live their lives fully and freely. That, to me, like that one client of mine that, messaged me, she's like, yeah, I've gotten regular periods. I've started marathon running again. But what stands out to me most is how my life has changed, where I have more grace with myself. I can take breaks. I know it's okay if I don't go to the gym, and I'm laughing. I'm having joy in my life. I'm living, I'm feeling again. That to me is like the that's my goal for my clients. The period and the babies is the icing, on the cake.
Stress plays a huge role in everything. It's not really just, like you said, it's not always about the food, the nutrition. It's the habits and the behaviors behind the habits, and then how things are then affecting you positively or negatively. And whenever I talk to anybody that I'm working with in patient or client settings, and they come to me with what ideally they think is the issue, I'm like, that's not the issue. Like, I can already kind of read in, there's probably more behind this. And just as a quick side note, so this leads me to my next question with you as well, Cynthia. Who do you rely on as far as your interdisciplinary team members? Who are you working with and collaborating with to know that you have maybe a full support, or anything that you might
Mm.
not know too deeply in? Who can you reach out to? Share with us a little bit about how on the more business services and who you're working with these days.
Yes, I'll share business services, and I also want to share client-based services too, because I think that's super important. So right now, I've taken a break with business coaching. I thrive well with direction. Right. Again, if someone's going to get me there more efficiently, more effectively, they've made the mistakes already, it can save me time and energy, like sign me up. So I kind of made a little bit of a hiccup mistake in back in September, and I worked with a coach, which she's an amazing coach, but she just wasn't the fit for me. But I learned a ton, and I'm very grateful for that experience. And so right now, I'm actually working with, and I'm probably not going to be able to explain it, but a business constellation person. Are you familiar with constellations, Dina? So it kind of goes into like family history of like how you feel about certain things, energy work. So some people would call it woo woo. So right now,
I'm all
kind of
about that. The marrying of
yes.
those things. Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, so I found her through a colleague, and she's really helped me look at, like, for example, the ceiling as a dietitian, like clinical dietitian, I can't remember the amount, the salary, but I was like, oh, awesome. I grew up not having a lot, and so I'm like, oh, I'm going to be making X amount. Cool. Like, this is awesome. Like, but now, I'm making much more than a clinical dietitian salary. And it's like, whoa, like, can I hold this? So it's looking at my energy behind my money mindset, how I grew up, my familial stuff with money. So that's just one example of kind of the constellation. So we look at that together, and also like what I'm doing in my business, is this aligned with who I am, my soul's purpose? And when I met with her initially, she's like, I have never had a connection with a person and their business as strong as you have. And I'm like, she's like, you are doing the work that you are meant to do. And every day I wake up, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm so grateful that I get to do what I get to do. Not only for the, flexibility, but I get to be there for women and help them. And I don't want to say help them, because nobody's broken, nobody needs fixing, but support them and serve them to not only meet their goals of what it is that they need, a period or pregnancy, or getting back to being an athlete with a regular period, but really help them peel layers back of the stuff that doesn't need to be there, if you will. So, but also that stuff that it's not supposed to be there served us at that particular time. So that's kind of what I'm dabbling into right now. Eventually, I'll probably work with someone again, but I feel like I'm really in this transitional phase in my business where I really want to support women, not only getting their periods back and, feeling more free in their life, which I have been doing forever, but really support them on a deeper level. And so my question is, how am I doing that? First, I got to do it on myself. First, we got to go deeper with ourselves in order to really be able to serve our clients to the full capacity. Because if we can't do it ourselves, to me, and this is my opinion, then how are we going to do it for someone else, right? So that's what I'm exploring now in the business realm, and also giving myself breaks in grace. Because, as a single mom, and I am, I have a mortgage, I have a car, I have things, I have sports for my kids, it's still like there's a little bit of fear, like if I don't succeed. But that's something I'm also working on and exploring, because you know what? There are so many women out there that need support in this particular avenue. And I always tell everyone, I'm like, if I won the lottery and I didn't have any like need to, pay for anything, I would do this work for free. because I love it so, so very much. So that's the business side. And the client side, I'm so excited. It started, I think, probably last year sometime, where I have not only myself, I have a body image dietitian. Her name is Katie. And then I also have my other dietitian, Kellen, who works in the eating disorder field. And then I'm also just adding into the mix a behavioral scientist and somatic coach. So I'm able to like start to really the things that maybe I can't yet support my clients with, or I don't feel like I have that full expertise in, I'm having other professionals, so that interdisciplinary or multi team to be able to support my clients in all avenues.
Oh, I love all of these things because, again, it really does allow us to see inside what people sometimes don't see, the behind the scenes things of all of the things that we're navigating, as whether we're working in a health professional field in one specific organization. Like you mentioned before, we have a scope of work that we have to adhere to and maintain credentials and maintain continuing education units, but then also the more personal side of what works best for me and my life and how I don't want to get burnt out. And that's a very important thing to understand too. We're all humans, as you said. Just because we have the dietetic credential doesn't mean that we're still not dealing with and juggling all of the things here. So that also brings me to one of my favorite questions asked also is productivity stuff. Like, how do you work best? Are you a time blocker? Are you analog versus digital? Do you have, like me, 627 reminders on your phone because I don't keep anything in my brain? So share with us a little bit about that too, like juggling all the things, even if you weren't running your business, whoever's listening or watching this, how are you managing things? What works best for you? Because I know we sometimes get sucked into productivity gurus online and we try to wake
Mhm.
up at 5 o'clock in the morning, but it's about finding our personal strengths and areas that we think need improvement. So share with us a little bit about how you manage all the stuff.
Yes, yes, great question. So, number one, listening to my body, which I'm still learning. So if I'm tired, like at the end of the night, even though I have, like, when you own your own business, there's always something to do. Always. Like there's never not. So, I could easily open my computer after my kids go to sleep around 8. But I'm like, no. Like I need to just no, maybe read a book or just do nothing or hang out with my partner or watch a mindless show. I'll say no to myself there. So that's one thing, listening to my body. One thing I am working on, this past summer, I was pretty sick like 3 times and I totally burned myself out between kids and work and going out and adventuring. Like I love to like mountain bike and all the things. So I totally burnt myself out and it was really hard for me to not feel like I have to show up to my business because and probably if I maybe took some more time to rest, which is kind of hard with a 6 and an 8 year old, but maybe I wouldn't have gotten sick 3 times in a row. I don't know. But I learned a lot from that, that I am going to do a better job like of listening to my body. So that's one thing. But in the day to day, I have just recently, and it took me some time to get there, as I'm like, I think it's Tuesdays and Fridays. I'm not working with anyone. I'm working on the business. I am, doing things that I need to do for the business, whether it's social media, whatever the tasks are. So that's one big thing where it's like, oh, it's almost like, I mean, I love what I do. I love working with all the women I work with, but it's also important that I take a step back too, not only for myself, but for them, because I want to be able to fully show up for them. So that's one thing. My Google Calendar has been pretty life-changing, and I synced it with my Practice Better account, which is where I schedule clients and discovery calls and so forth. So before I'm like, oh my gosh, like looking at my personal calendar, they don't they don't teach this kind of stuff in college either. This is all self-learned. So that has been really helpful. And looking ahead at the week, I really like to take Sundays just to plan out my week. Most of the time it does happen, and I really like when it does because then I can walk into the office Monday morning and just go. And another thing that I recently did was, because I work from home, is 1 to 2 days a week I'm working at a co-working space. So to get out of my home office, because I mean, being in your home, I don't know if you work from home, Dina, or not. yeah, that you see stuff like, oh, there's laundry, or oh, I could put the chicken in the crock pot later, for dinner. And I do have a content calendar. Before I was just like shooting social media, just like, oh, this sounds good. But now I have like sort of a strategy, which social media always changes. So once you got your strategy down, it changes again. And email, I'm trying to do a better job of like just checking it twice a day because it's like almost like a impulse where, oh, there's my inbox. Let me look at it quick. So I'm trying to do that and trying to mostly always have my phone on do not disturb so I'm not getting pulled back from personal stuff because as a business owner and being your own boss, it's easy to be like, oh, let me just call so and so, or oh, I got to take care of this or that. So I'm trying to not have many interruptions. And then another thing I've also done because it's really easy, Dina, to do our other tasks that we have to do as like normal humans, doctor's appointments. So I try to say any kind of like outside appointment that isn't work always happens on a Wednesday.
Focus comes into play there too, where you're in it, and you have, again, kind of like the time blocks where you're focusing on things. Setting boundaries, that's a theme that comes up a lot in
Mm,
these episodes, both with ourselves and with other people. Do not disturb, and also I have to make sure I'm not distracted, or I also have to say I have a hard stop at 6 o'clock or
mm,
8 o'clock or whatever. Because you're right, with working at home, from home, for me, it's a very teeny tiny apartment. I've actually given some like online virtual tours of this teeny space that I have here. So I have a space where I do work, and then I have an outside space, which is a more general living area that I can,
mm.
be out there. But I have a boyfriend who also works from home. I have a cat who I think sole purpose in life is to try to terrorize me as often as possible. He's an adult cat with like his, we adopted him very late in life, so we don't know what his background story is.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I have to be conscientious of him pouncing on me when I'm on video calls. But also, right, and you probably do this too. It's like the shower is also a place where I brainstorm ideas. I'm in the bathroom and I'm checking emails and,
Yeah.
answering text messages. So there is no delineation as to where my work ends. So I have to make sure that I'm keeping those boundaries. And I love the thing about stepping outside, whether it's a co-working space. For me, I can go to campus and I can work in the adjunct office, or I
Mm,
have a nutrition office there because I'm also the campus dietitian. So nobody's using
yeah.
my office if I want to run up there. Cynthia, in the next 15 minutes, I want to try to see if we can cover three more things. The first one,
Okay.
what does the future you look like? What are you seeing yourself for either short-term or long-term business or personal things? Where do you see your business going, and what things do you maybe want to accomplish in other aspects of your life?
So I'm going to start with long term first. Well, my kids are 6 and 8, so I'm not going anywhere anytime soon. But I also sometimes dream about, and I hate to wish time away because, they're only little ones. But when they're maybe in college, I would love to be doing what I do now, traveling the world and maybe going to New Zealand for a month or, Europe or whatever. I want to see the world. I want to experience the world. So, and if I didn't have kids, I would be very nomadic, I think. And I'd be like, okay, I'm going here for a month, going here for a month, going here for a month. So, but again, if I didn't have kids, I probably wouldn't be here doing what I do because it's part of my story. But so that's like long term. And I would love, I don't know, I envision myself maybe writing a book one day. I really would love to do more in person. So this is okay, so book is long term. But a little bit more short term is I want to be able to connect more in person with people. So designing or building retreats for women or just again to connect with my clients, my past clients, my future clients, so forth. That in-person connection is really important, and I really am desiring that, especially after COVID, growing a business during COVID. So another short-term thing, I want to speak maybe at some colleges or work with other dietitians at colleges to spread the awareness because there is the average age of this is 26 HA. Most are competitive athletes, 35% are female college students of this 17.4 million worldwide that suffer from HA. So yeah, so I'd like to do more in-person stuff and I would like to be able to create more offerings for my audience. Right now, it's pretty much just my group coaching program. I do some one-on-ones, but women thrive so much more in a community. So that's my main offer. And aside from that, I don't have a course. I would love to have a course one day or just different if you will, containers that might be more affordable or timely for women. So that's what I kind of see more short term. And then I would love my summers to be a little bit more flexible and having maybe a 2 or 3 day work week and being okay with it, not like, oh my gosh, like if I take a day off, like I'm gonna miss X, Y, and Z. So so yeah, I would say those would be it. And being involved more in research, I love that. So I'm actually working closely. Her name is Dr. Christiana Schufelt. She's from the Mayo Clinic here in the States in Florida, and she is leading the way in research for HA. And I'm actually going to give to Dina a link to a podcast recording her and I did, because you guys, if you are missing your period, you can be a part of this research. You can help us mold women's health so more doctors know about this. Because the thing is, so many women I get, they're like, well, why doesn't my doctor know about it? I'm like, well, the research isn't there. Like we have to, like, again, root cause here. So we got to get the research out there. So yeah, this is a podcast you'll want to listen to if you want to be a part of research. You can also, depending if you qualify, go to Florida to the Mayo Clinic. They have a travel stipend. You can get testing done and so forth. So there's a lot of great things that they're doing at the Mayo Clinic in Florida. So I'll give that to you, Dina.
Oh my gosh, the more we can provide anything on this subject, and the better it is. Like you said, when you gave me, what was it, 130 something to 8,000 ratio of research
Yeah.
that's out there already, I think that's definitely needed. I'm also thinking of a lot of people in my head right now, both students that I work with, people who I see on campus, and people who I see in my private practice that I think would benefit from both your resources, maybe even working directly with you in your group sessions, and also maybe putting them in touch to work on this research. So thank you so much for sharing all of that.
Yes.
Cynthia, my next question for you is there anything, this is such a large, broad question, but is there anything that we didn't cover that you would like to share, kind of like final words of wisdom, or anything that we didn't touch upon that you think is important?
So I think a big important thing is that birth control pills, doctors, that's like most doctors' frontline treatment of like, here's the pill. Like, try this, it'll kickstart, it'll jumpstart. That, along with progesterone or a Provera challenge, is another thing I see in many of my clients. Well, just take this, this will kickstart. There's nothing that's going to kickstart a missing period. So that's one thing. And I already said, trust your gut, trust your intuition. I didn't actually, I'm just going to briefly. So, missing period, most women will think, well, I'm not going to have kids, or I'm not going to have babies anytime soon. Well, when you have lack of estrogen in your body, you are setting yourself up for cardiovascular disease, which is the leading cause of death in women in the States and US. So, and 1 in 3 women with HA have an endothelial dysfunction, which is an early sign for cardiovascular disease. So bone loss is a huge thing with women with HA. So, osteoporosis. So, and those are just some things. And so I have a little bit of research here that the mean bone density of a young woman with 6 or more months of a missing period is equivalent to that of a 51-year-old woman. So yeah, so there's serious health complications that come along with this. It's not just about your period. It's not just about having babies. It's your health. It is literally your health. So I just want to just share that tidbit too.
It's the interconnectivity that is a human body. Just because one thing is working or not working, or somebody has a goal for a particular health condition, it doesn't also mean that it's going to affect or not affect something else. I keep thinking of things like my mom, who I talk about constantly on these episodes,
Mm-hmm.
started out with high blood pressure, ended up getting diagnosed with high blood pressure and managing her high blood pressure with medicine, and in effect it ended up kind of messing with her kidneys, but nobody really knew about that. And so that is one of those conditions that can be affecting two different systems of your body, interrelated in some way. But the way to treat and manage hypertension, high blood pressure, is the almost opposite way that you treat and manage chronic kidney disease. So you have to be really conscientious. So knowing things, right? Again, the advocacy
Mm-hmm.
discussion, there's only so many things that people know who are not affiliated with the health and science. They might not know the questions to ask, but this is why we are here doing these things.
Yeah.
I love putting people in touch with proper resources. I love also getting in touch with people's doctors too, of saying, this is the information that my patient told me. Can I just clarify that for a second? Because I'm not sure if she heard you correctly. And if she did hear you correctly, um, no, that's not true. That's not true.
Yeah.
So can we please, work together so that I can use my expertise to what the goal is to be of service to our clients and our patients. We want to make sure, like you said, support them to so they get to a place where they're not just managing their condition, they're much more confident, much more aware, much more of ownership of within their own body, and then that leads them to be able to live and lead a quality life and be able to take that stress off of them. So I love all of that. All right,
Yeah.
Cynthia, my final two questions for you, my food pun intended questions are, what is on your plate today? So it is currently kind of earlier in the morning on a weekday. When we wrap up, what is the next thing that you are working on? And then what is the next thing that you are eating?
Okay. So the sun is shining here in upstate New York, which it doesn't shine as often as I feel like it should. So that is just a breath of fresh air. And my kids have been homesick with me since Sunday. So I am just, it's really helpful to my mental health. So what I'm doing after this, so it's Thursday, and on Thursdays I usually have all my group coaching client calls, and so I get to see all the amazing women I get to serve and that's what's following after this podcast. And then after that, what do I have? Oh, I have a private client, which I don't have too many. I take 3 per quarter because I want to make sure that my energy and my focus is with my group, is with my one-on-one. So it's really important. And then obviously energy for myself because I don't got nothing. No one else is getting anything. So there, I have that going on. And what I'm going to be eating next is nothing exciting. It is my breakfast. It's a little bit late because I decided I wanted a latte. An iced latte before, and I like to sip on things while I'm recording podcasts. So I had that. So I'm going to have my breakfast a little bit late, which will throw back lunch a little bit as far as timing because I won't be hungry. But it's a shake. There's chocolate protein powder in it, some spinach, banana, peanut butter, yogurt. I can't remember what else. So it's yeah. So it's a all inclusive breakfast, and I'm not thrilled about. I'm not excited, but my body needs fuel, and I don't particularly have the time to make stuff in the morning. So yeah. But I hope after I'm going to eat is I have this avocado dip that I made, and not really a dip. It's a dipping sauce for tacos. So I'm going to make that for lunch, which was my leftovers for dinner last night.
That sounds delightful and delicious. And that also makes me so happy because, like you said, sometimes food is just food. It's just a vehicle to bring nutrients
Ugh,
into our
yeah.
body. It is what it is. And that's something that I really enjoy for myself as well. I put a lot of things on rotation. Sometimes I get bored with things. Sometimes, with the erratic schedules, because like you, I have certain days of the week that I do different things, and some days are much longer than others. So I don't have the luxury to sit down. But I'm going to be treating myself to a nice little hearty breakfast because I also waited a little bit longer today to get started as well. So avocados in my queue today too, Cynthia. So we'll be
Mm.
honoring the lovely and talented avocado in our meals today. Well, Cynthia, this has been a real pleasure getting to know you and learn more about you and really bringing to light something that I think not a lot of people are aware of. As you said, specifically, we know the statistics now, so this is very important to make sure that messages get out there. And for anybody who is currently struggling or maybe being misdiagnosed, hopefully this brings a lot more information your way. And we look forward to working with each other or working with you in the future as well. Can't wait to see what happens for you on your journey too, Cynthia. Thanks so much for being here.
Thank you, Dina.